I wanted to speak to you about quite a difficult topic, and that is the topic of losing somebody. Now, when I talk about losing somebody, it may be a broken relationship. Perhaps you're no longer friends with somebody, or you've broken up with your girlfriend or your boyfriend. Perhaps you've had somebody move away, somebody very dear to you. And sometimes you've had somebody die who's been very close to you. And it's a really difficult time. And I suppose when I work with people who are going through this period of grief, it's a very individual situation as well. And some things are going to apply more than others. Just recently, I had one of my young students accidentally kill himself. And he's only 14, and it was a very, very difficult situation, not just for his family, but also for his friends at school. There are a number of different emotions that we associate with grief, and the obvious ones like sadness, but also emotions like anger and confusion, denial, and then acceptance as well. They're all of the sorts of emotions that we can feel at any given time. And some people talk about the cycle of grief, but in actual fact, you can be feeling any of those emotions at different times. Often boys tend to experience anger a little bit more than girls do, but not necessarily. And certainly confusion about why did something happen? Why did it happen like that? Or why did it have to happen to me? What's really important at any given time is to be able to work through that, is to have support around you. But I thought that I might speak very briefly about some of the other things to bear in mind. Let's take a broken relationship, for example. It's always much easier to work through the grief and to deal with the emotions when it's a voluntary breakup, when you've decided this is something that you really need to do yourself, and it was your choice. When you have choice, you have control, and chances are you gave it quite a lot of thought as to why you broke up. So you can usually manage to put that to bed. It doesn't mean to say that there's no grief. You can actually really miss somebody, but you just don't miss other parts of them, perhaps. When it's involuntary, it's really difficult. When it's involuntary, perhaps it's also been a big surprise as well. Not necessarily, but then that's where what we have to do is to think about being able to let go, being able to say, I don't have control over this, and to be okay giving that up. Distraction is really important at this point, to do other stuff, to not spend too long wallowing in that hole, in that big old pond of grief. And that's where your friends are really good when it comes to sort of helping, come on, let's go off, let's go do something else, get your mind on other things, which is probably one of the easiest ways. I often say, as a rule of thumb, if you've broken up with somebody, particularly somebody you've been together with for quite a long old time, you also need to have time not seeing them, which is always very difficult if you've happened to be dating somebody from school. And in actual fact, if you've been together for quite a long time, I'll say round about 6 months. 6 months apart, 6 months of no contact, until you can actually be in touch again and not have that heart thing go on. Okay, so just bear those things in mind. A little bit about death, and a little bit on how to deal with death, because death is something that we don't tend to do so well in the Western world. Some of the things that I suggest that people do is to make a memory book, to look back on your relationship with a person who has died, whether it's a member of the family or a friend, and to put together pictures and perhaps write some quotes or even some music. And also have some closure, have a ceremony. If there's not a funeral or you can't go to a funeral, then maybe have your own memorial as well. And for those people who have perhaps had a miscarriage or lost children, that can also apply as well, of being able to say goodbye and have closure on that moment. And take yourself to a place, as I said, if it's not a funeral, then take yourself to your own place to say goodbye to somebody, and maybe take the memory book with you, or, take a candle or something like that, and to have your own ceremony. Because us human beings, we invented ceremonies for a reason. And one of those reasons is to help close off chapters of our life. then the important thing is once you've done that, you do need to move on. If it's somebody that you really love, chances are they really loved you, and they wouldn't want you staying in a whole pond of sadness. So think to yourself, right, what next? Get back into the routine of life, and that routine will actually help you. It's not to make you feel guilty that you're going to forget them, because they will always have that little shaped friend heart or family member heart, shaped heart. Okay? So there are going to be times when you fall off the track and you get sad again. But the point is, if you have something, you have a routine, you can get back into it, then those times are going to become fewer and fewer and easier to get out of. And once again, that's not to say that you're forgetting the person, but you're just letting go of the grief that's around them. So I hope I've given you something to have a little bit of think about. It's not easy, and there's not a pill to take or a button to press, and the grief goes away. And the best thing is actually having somebody sit down with you, and you get to have a big old cry, and you get to think back over the good stuff as well, and then to let it go, and then to get back on with life.